Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Martel D'Angelo Bivings. Hello. And I prefer to just go by Bivings, and I'm running for United States Congress. And this is way beyond Republican or Democrat. It is about preserving, strengthening our republic, and who has the skill set. Yes, I am black. Yes, I am from Detroit, but it's beyond my blackness. It's my ability to legislate. I am pursuing employment from you to go to Washington to craft laws to bring finances back to the district. So yes, it's my skill set. I'm a graduate of Howard University, political science, legal communication. I worked in the United States Senate with Senator Carl Levin. I worked in the State House Representative with Shri. I worked at the City Council with Scott Benson, crafting policy, passing legislation. I hope to open over 45 businesses in City Council District 4 with the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation. I saved over $500,000 in personal property taxes for small businesses. I led the Airport City Task Force. So the report that just came out today, where we're going to save Coleman Young International City, I did that work 5 years ago in Scott Benson's office. So it's about skill set, and I just happen to be black and from Detroit. That's added. It is about skill set. And my opponent here is running, and he's a state representative, and he has not authored one bill. That's what it's about, legislation. What bill have you authored to make the lives of the people better? And he has not made no one life better through the legislative process. So why would we extend a vote to him to go to Washington, and he has not demonstrated the ability? It is not about Democrats. It is about ability. So this election, this time, I'm asking you to give me a chance, and I will give you a choice. Vote someone who has the ability, not just because they're with the party. Thank you.
Good evening. How's everybody? I'm so glad to see all of you here. I'm so glad to see so many young people here. You know, we need young people involvement in our politics. My name is Shri Canada. I am a state representative in the Michigan House. I am currently doing the job of rep in the Michigan House, sponsoring, co-sponsoring bills, working on budgets. So I come with that experience. You know, I am the only candidate that has an experience as a elected official. I'm also a scientist. I'm a scientist. I am a grandfather. I have 2 grandchildren, 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I grew up in poverty. I grew up in abject poverty. I worked as a janitor to help my family, pull my family out of poverty. And that's what I come from my lifetime of experiences, having struggled through and having gotten education, and then having started small business, having created hundreds of jobs. I'm the only candidate that actually owned businesses and created hundreds of jobs. So I come with all of these lifetime experiences. I come with my experience in the Michigan House as a lawmaker, and I'm here ready to fight for you in the halls of the Congress. Thank you.
Thank you both. Our next question is, what do you think needs to be done with addressing the growing issue of gun violence? How can we address this issue without funding things like Project Greenlight, ShotSpotter, or increasing policing? Bars.
I want everyone here to Google what it takes to co-sponsor a bill. You just gonna walk in the House floor and say, add my name to it. We need somebody who has authored bills that's gotten to the governor with her signature, and he's not done that. To address gun violence, back in the 1960s when African Americans led the country at the height a family, there was a man and a woman in the household, we did not have this over-proliferation of gun violence. We need to craft policy that encourages a man and a woman in a household to bring the family back. So we can have family values. So that young man and that one woman can be disciplined and structured and have love and culture. That is how we do it without having to need shot fire or spot, what was it? Spot fire. Shot spotter. We wouldn't need that if we had strong families and strong values because we would get back to those disciplined days. When I grew up in my neighborhood, that was not the main problem because my parents was loving me, we were working with each other. That's how we do it. And we don't do it by eliminating guns. If someone interrupts your household, you should be able to defend yourself as long as you're a law-abiding gun owner. That's what matters. So pardon me? What about police? We should not have police brutality. And one of the things we have in the city of Detroit that is no.
Stay on your question.
Yes, ma'am.
Trigger.
Go ahead,
Appreciate it. So that is how we get back to not having so much over-proliferation of gun violence. Let's get back to strong, hardcore family values. Thank you.
It's a good question. It's an important question. And what we saw at Oxford High School, and what we've seen over 250 mass shootings already in this year, all across America. And we cannot live with this kind of mass shooting. We cannot live with our children being dying in the schools. We need common sense gun control. We need background checks. I am a Democrat. You know, I am very proud to say I'm a Democrat. We hear my opponent is a Republican, and Republicans continuously foul gun controls. Republicans continuously protected gun ownership, always protected carrying concealed weapons, and we also saw Republicans promote and control people carrying assault rifles in Michigan House of Representatives. I believe in background checks. I believe in right policing. I believe that policing should not be racist. There is no racism, no hate should be in our police department. We need to have a fair policing. We need to have technologies that are proven. There are certain technologies that have not been proven yet. And what we find is that these technologies disproportionately are against people of color, and we don't want those undeveloped technologies be used to discriminate against people of color.
Okay, all right, thank you all for those answers. So the second question, we're going to start with you. What do you think needs to be done to rain gardens help prevent stormwater overflow and protect our drinking water? What other kinds of sustainable infrastructure should we fund to prevent pollution, reduce light, and increase the use of parks and green spaces?
Many in the Republican Party deny the climate crisis. You see in the last Republican president talk about against Paris Accord and climate change. We need to protect our environment. We need to protect our earth. We need to protect our planet, and we can only do that by eliminating the carbon footprint. By 2050, we must get rid of our reliance on fossil fuel. I would say that as a Democrat, you would not hear that from a Republican. We need to focus on our environment. I as a Democrat support the new Green Deal. I as a Democrat support keeping our earth clean, and keeping our resources pure, because I believe clean air and clean water are fundamental human rights. That's what I believe as a Democrat. That's what I believe as a progressive Democrat, and I'll fight for that in Congress.
He keeps on telling you Democrat versus Republican. But when you're sitting at your kitchen table, you don't say Democrat, Republican. You say, I'm struggling in the grocery store. Gas is too much. I want my child to be educated. This is beyond party. It is about skill set. Skill sets. Which of the two has the skill set and the ability to craft language, build relationships, and get things done? It's not about party. Stop distracting us. Stop trying to play us. Address the issues and how you'll solve them. Don't try to pin me into somewhere. I'm not going to pin you into somewhere. I'm going to address the issues. And I help open businesses up. When I was in the DGC, Shri is an amazing businessman. He's like Michael Jordan when he left and go play baseball. He didn't do well in baseball. Shri's not doing well as a legislator, because if he was, he could talk about the things he passed and lands. He hasn't. So Shri should go back to being a business person and employing people and paying them high wages so they can have their heels high, because that's your skill set, not legislation. With the green infrastructure, we need to continue doing some of the things that the city's done with the Green Task Force. Rain barrels, water barrels. When businesses come in, we should give them tax incentives to build parking lots to collect water. These are things that will help us reduce our carbon footprint. And as Martell Bivings, a Detroiter who lives in Jefferson Charmer, whose basement had over 6 feet of water in it last year, and I didn't get a furnace until this March, I understand our infrastructure. I understand our stormwater issues. I understand what's going on in climate change and all that. Do not try to make and associate me with the rest of my party. I am a Detroit man first. I am a black man first. And you will address me on the things that I'm pushing. And I will address you on the things that you're pushing. And you're just telling us what we want to hear. You for clean air. We shouldn't have certain policing things because it's a colored community. Talk about issues. That's good. I like that. That was good.
Gotcha. Thank y'all for the answers. During the final week of last school year, DPS had to end their days early due to hot weather and lack of AC. This is one of the many ongoing issues students face because of the physical conditions of school buildings. How will you work with school board members to address this ongoing situation?
Good question.
Of course, always addressing the question of DPS. But one of the things I've come to understand running for the 13th Congressional District, you know, it's 20 municipalities. And one of the beauties of stepping out of your comfort zone and interfacing with others is you learn that they too have those same exact issues. There's other municipalities in our district that have those same issues. So as a legislator, I would work with all my elected officials and see what is their plan. What do they want? Because as you know, you have separation of state and federal government. So and being an employee of yours, as is the Board of Education members, I would say, what do you want? What do you need? How can we address this? Maybe from a green perspective, maybe we can give school systems tax incentives if they have solar systems. Maybe we can give schools tax incentives so that they will be able to afford heating and cooling and proper changes. And maybe this would be an opportunity for us to also partner with our small businesses who are in heating and cooling, so that the school board can give those contracts out to local businesses. But it starts with communicating with the elected officials, identifying the funding source, and if we're having this issue in the 13th Congressional District, I'm pretty sure that another state is also going to be having those issues. When we go to Congress, we only have 13 representatives in the state of Michigan. So I have to build relationships and work with other legislators to get that done. So I'll identify who else has that issue in the country so I can build a voting block to get that type of funding off. Thank you.
Education is important. It was education that helped me overcome poverty. Every child must get the best education she can, no matter what zip code she lives in. Now, Republican Betsy DeVos has single-handedly destroyed our public education in Michigan. Betsy DeVos single-handedly has destroyed. And that's what Republicans would do. Republicans have consistently curtailed funding for public school at the expense of for-profit charter schools. Nobody should be profiting from educating our children. Nobody should be profiting. Working with Governor Whitmer, I helped bring in $1.2 billion to Detroit public schools. $700 million of that money was used for giving incentives for teachers, for COVID education, for COVID testing. And when I started campaigning, I have seen water on gym floors. I have seen teachers paying out of their own pocket, buying supplies for their schools. I've seen teachers who are not paid enough, not respected enough. Now we have $500 million to rebuild 5 different schools, including Pershing High School, right here in my district. I was able to pass a bill both in the Michigan House and Michigan Senate, and the governor signed my bill into a law, and my bill provides additional money for contamination cleanup. We have 24,000 sites, and my bill brought money to address contamination cleanup.
That's fine.
Thank you all for your answers. Now is the time for us to have 2 audience questions, but I'm gonna take your time real quick to ask you all one, because I don't hear from anybody until something tragic happens. And I don't want this, I'm gonna take 1 minute for both of you. I don't want it to be a back and forth about Democrat, Republican, none of that, because I don't hear that. I want to know about what you want to stress as far as it comes to mental health. It shouldn't always be something that has to pop up for it to be a tragic event, then we talk about it, then it disappears. It has to be time off of that. So you men are the ones running for this vote in this congressional district. So I'm just asking you, plain and simple, what will you do to address mental health once either one of you make it to Washington, D.C.?
You all got Google. Look up the word mind. He has not authored one bill. That $500 million came from someone else's bill that he voted for. He's not done the work. So I really wish you stop trying to play us like you've done something. You know you have. You can Google how many bills has Shri got to the governor's desk that he has wrote himself. He hasn't. So with mental health, funding for mental health starts at a very young age. It should be instituted in all our schools. It should be instituted at the elementary level, middle school level, high school level. And I think bringing back certain programs in our education helps with mental health. Arts education, yoga, stretching, calmness, stronger family values. Some of the mental illnesses that affect from us are coming from childhood. A child going to school and not having decent food at home, a child going to school and not having heating, a child going to school and having blue rooftop on their roof. These things affect the psyche. It's a socio-economic issue, and you're right, it does start at the very beginning and not when something happens. As we are moving and growing as a culture, we are now starting to address this. There should be funding, and counselors and teachers should be well trained and well prepared to be able to sense the signs and to be able to get help. From an adult perspective, it should be encompassed in our healthcare programs, and healthcare should be affordable so that that is something that you can have. And those are things that I will address when I get to Washington. And whatever answer my opponent gives you, you can look up his record and see that he introduced the bill to deal with that. And he hasn't. Thank you.
I just want to let y'all know that does not count towards our 2 questions, so we still have enough time for 2 more people. And you all will still be timed 2 minutes, so.
Very good question. You know, I lost my first wife, and I lost the mother of my children. My children were 4 and 8 years old then, and I lost their mother to mental illness. So not only I understand the stigma of poverty, I understand the stigma of mental health and what that does to a family. Mental health services were curtailed by Governor Engler, and they were never restored. And I worked across the aisle to bring more funding for mental health services. I talked with grandmas, and they told me that their grandchild is sitting and staying in emergency rooms because the psychiatric bed is not available. I worked with Republicans to bring $650 million for new psychiatric hospital for children. You know, when I talk, I'm talking about experiences. I'm talking about exactly what I've done in a similar environment, that the job that I'm seeking. So we also put $250 million so we can have psychological counseling in schools. Mental illness begins at a 10-year-old. It manifests in young children, and we need mental health services in our schools, and we put 600 counselors in our schools.
So, we got room for 2 audience questions. I'm sure you all have something burning on your chest, so I got room for 2. Oh, okay, then.
Go ahead.
Do y'all think? Okay, so we'll start.
Okay, what I want to know, when I heard you speaking, I heard a lot about Democrats. But what I've been seeing is, you're running in the 13th district. The 13th district was a historical black district held by John Connors, okay? The thing about it is it's not about Republicans and it's not about Democrats. What it's about is working people being able to put food on their plate and send their kids to quality school. So what I want to know is, if you go up there, are you going to bring some resources back to the city of Detroit that is going to equate for our schools to have adequate air conditioning? Are you going to bring back where we can buy houses and get houses? You're going to bring back some kind of deal where we can walk into banks and get businesses and things. Because when you're talking about you created businesses and you created this, I haven't seen a bill that you wrote, but I heard a lot about the Democrats. What I want to know is what the Democrats are going to do for the inner city of Detroit.
I take that's just for him. That's just for him.
It's for both of them.
Well, I'm the only one that have brought money to Detroit. I'm the only one that have brought money to my district. I have brought, as I said, $1.2 billion for Detroit public schools. I have brought in $300,000 for community gardens. I brought in money for seniors. I brought in money for summer camps. I have brought in more money in 2 years that I am in Lansing than the person who had my job for last 6 years. I brought in 3 times as much money in 2 years than what he brought in 6 years. So talking about bringing money, definitely I look at that as my #1 job in terms of bringing dollars for infrastructure. When the infrastructure bill was brought in, not a single Republican voted for it. You know, we brought infrastructure dollars without the Republican support, and that will bring in $1 billion for infrastructure improvement. I will be there supplying, talking about voting rights, John Lewis voting rights, not a single Republican supports. We will make that into a law. PRO Act, the act to protect workers' rights, not a single Republican supports that. We will make that into a law to protect our workers' rights. And finally, women's right to choose. I support 100% women's right to choose. 100%. And I'm committed to codifying Roe into the United States Constitution so the government does not come between a woman and her doctor. And that's what I will do as a Democrat.
Y'all remember that song from Ray back in the day? And it was like, tell them what they want to hear. Tell them what they want to hear. That's this guy. He's just really telling you what he thinks you want to hear. He's so funny. Google him and what he's done in Lansing. He has not authored, put forth one bill. He has voted on other people's work. You do not get anything done in Lansing as a Democrat, as a minority, because you don't have the votes to get it out. So when he said they got something done without Republicans, that's just not feasible numerically. It literally, through a vote numbering process, cannot happen. And he has the unmitigated audacity to stand here in your face and lie because he thinks you do not know how government works. That's what he believes. Because if he did all of those things, that's what he would be talking about. I brought this money through, and if you could check HR, what HR bill has your name on it as author, so we can look it up? He can't, because there are none. So when I get to Washington, he is right about one thing. A lot of Republicans, many of them may have not had our back. Many of them may not have walked on your door and knocked on it and asked you for your issues. It's time for us to have a Detroiter at the Republican table. Because what that's going to do is, the Republicans, for the first time, is going to have a reason to listen to a Detroiter. Republicans are going to have a reason to say, hey, how do we keep Detroit at the table? Because we want to stay in power. That's what's going to happen when I get to Washington. I am going to be our voice at the Republican table. Because like my good friend said, if you are not on the menu, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So, let's get off the menu, Detroit. Put me at the table. Thank you.
That's all.
Is that it? On January 6th, I was on Houston Whittier delivering PPP to my small businesses to make sure they're able to stay open. What I do believe in America is a true just society, innocent until proven guilty. And if one commits a crime and he or she goes through the process and is judged by his or her peers, and they find them guilty, then whatever the sentence requires, then it is appropriate. So to answer your question directly, if the president is adjudicated and his peers find him guilty, whatever that fine is, it should be appropriate for him. Does that answer the question, ma'am? No. Well, you said, do I think he should be convicted? I'm a black man in America, ma'am. I'm not about to ever say somebody who did not go through the process should go to jail. It's a process, because what happens is, if I stand here and say Donald Trump should just be guilty, go to jail, it applies to him. It applies to him. It applies to everything. Because what happens with our laws is there are a slippery slope. So if Donald Trump is convicted and he is adjudicated and the jury of his peers say he should go to prison, then yes.
we have a process, and it applies to all American citizens. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you think he was right, January 6th?
I don't think his rhetoric was right. I think his rhetoric brought out some uglies and evils that was not necessary and that we wouldn't want to see from the highest level of leadership in America.
He should be prosecuted and he should be punished. A Republican won't say that, but I will. You know, a Republican would protect Trump, who is the most racist president we have ever had. A Republican will support this president who supports white supremacy. A Republicans will support this man, egoistic man, who thought there were good people on both sides. This man single-handedly created more hatred in America.
He sure did.
He single-handedly created more hatred in America. And the shameful thing is, good Republicans want to go support him. Not a single Republican, or maybe there's a few like Liz Cheney and a few others who have spoken against, honestly, every other Republican does this. Try to protect this man who has single-handedly destroyed our democracy. You know, we got to, and when I'm in Congress, I'll ensure that nobody is above the law. Not a billionaire, not a president. Everybody is subjected to the laws of the United States, and they should be prosecuted.
A congressman does not have the ability to prosecute a president, so that is what you won't do. I answered the question. I said if he is adjudicated, then he should go to jail. Stop trying to pigeonhole me into Republican Democrat. Stop trying to distract us. Stop trying to distract us. That is exactly what you are doing. It is about what can we do from a legislative perspective. What policy, what language can I craft that's going to make life easier for the people in the 13th Congressional District? That is what a legislator do. And you're a legislator now of one of the most financially struggling districts in America, and you have yet to author a bill. You do not have the skill set, so all you can talk about is Republican, Democrat, Donald Trump. You can't get up here and say, hey everybody, go to your Google and pull up HR blank. Go to your Google and pull off HR blank. Because when I crafted HR blank and the governor signed this law, this is what it did.
We got to protect our democracy. We got to protect a woman's right to choose. We got to protect a worker's right to organize and collectively bargain. And we got to protect our voting rights. There has been attacks on our voting rights, and in the Michigan legislature, I've consistently voted against their attempt. I'm for freedom, I'm for rights.
Our next question will be from Lily.
In this year alone, we've seen hundreds of anti-trans bills come out. I want to know what you two will do when you go to Washington to protect trans kids. And I want to hear what you actually have to say, not what the other person can do or what they haven't done.
Well, I have supported expanding Elliott Larson laws to provide full protection for LGBTQ community. I have been a 100% supporter of LGBTQ rights, and I'll fight for LGBTQ rights in the Congress just like I fought for those in the Michigan House. I will fully support a person's choice in terms of how she wants to live, who she wants to love, or who he wants to love. That's a protection that I will always fight for.
I will protect LGBTQ rights as well. We have a Bill of Rights in America, and everyone has the right to liberty, pursuit of happiness, and I will ensure that happens. What I am not down with is someone saying, a guy saying I'm a girl and I'm about to play on sports. I'm not down with that. I do not support that. If you want to change your sex and be identified as something else, that does not give you the ability to merge into another sport and play and have an unfair advantage. I'm not cool with that. And if that's what you're cool with and if that's what he's supporting, that's your guy. Because I'm not down with that part of it. But as far as somebody's rights, being an American citizen and having the right to pursue happiness and love whomever, I am not going to attack that, and I don't have no interest in restricting any laws that has already been crafted to preserve that. Thank you.
Okay. Can we do another question or no?
I'm down for another question.
Reggie, can we do another question or no?
We have time.
Go ahead.
This budget. What experience do you have in lawmaking? Working for a Detroit City Council, I was policy analyst. So what the policy analysts do, we analyze the language, we make amendments to it, and we write suggestions. When I was in Scott's office, I don't know how many of you went downtown and you saw the mobile where you can get on it, you can kind of pedal it around downtown and you can drink while you pedal. That was an emerging business that had came into the city and they couldn't do business in the city. At the time, the language said you could pedal, but you couldn't drink. And when they came to Scott's office, I recodified the language, I gave it to Scott and he passed it. So that's one bill. When I was working with the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, I introduced 3 laws to Councilman Spalding and the rest of the city council because that's the council I was in, and they passed it. For instance, one of my business owners wanted to put a sign on her building. She had an artist come in from New York to spray paint the sign. And she couldn't do that because the law says if one wants to add their name to the building, it becomes advertising. But if you just want to paint a mural, you can do that. And if you add your name to it, you need a license, a regular sign license, which increases the cost. So I went in, I looked at other municipalities, I saw that we didn't have that. I altered the language, I worked with the Building Safety and Engineering Department, I changed the language, I introduced it to council, and they passed that language. So now, if you're a business owner and you want to get somebody to paint your name on your building, you do not have to pay for that. It's about understanding language and commas. Thank you.
Well, actually, I have a law in my name. I wrote a law that got passed. I wrote and sponsored and co-sponsored over 300 different laws. 300 different.
What's the law?
Including a law, two bills I co-wrote or co-sponsored with Representative Cynthia A. Johnson. These 2 bills were for reparations, to create a reparations and racial equity fund of $1.5 billion so black and brown business owners can be supported to start their businesses. But my law that the governor signed into law, my bill that she signed into law, does create opportunities and funding to clean up contaminated sites, because there is a lot of environmental contamination across Michigan, and I believe that clean air and clean water are our fundamental rights and we need to protect that. So I have experience in writing laws, I have experience in reviewing laws. Every bill that I vote, I read it, I understand it, and I always think, is this one that's going to do, what is it going to be for my constituent? Is it the right thing to do? And that's what I do. I'm a scientist. I believe in science, and I believe in doing my job. So I have not missed a single session of the House. Not many lawmakers can say that, but I've never missed a session. I've never missed a committee vote. I've never missed a House vote. So that's what you get from me, a work ethic where I'll show up. I'll show up every day, every session to work for you.
Bill card, so we can pull it up. HR what? HR, what's the bill that the governor signed?
Don't respect each other.
I just want to be careful.
You missed the grounding part, you missed the grounding part.
That's right.
Go ahead, Carrie.
Got him. Sorry, y'all. We're just gonna give our closing statements from each candidate. Sorry. You have 2 minutes. You will be cut off. Feel free to come up, anybody.
On November 8th, we have a very important election. This election will decide LGBTQ rights. This election will decide a woman's right to choose. This election will decide our voting rights. This election will decide investment into infrastructure. This election will decide our workers' rights. We are world's biggest and greatest democracy. We have two parties and they have different ideology, but they always worked hard for the best of our country. Unfortunately, one party has gone totally crazy. They have been adopted a leader who is narcissistic and who has done nothing but damage to our race relations, nothing but damage to our democracy, and has given the rich people huge tax breaks at the expense of average, ordinary people. We have a tremendous wealth gap in America. 6 billionaires hold half of the nation's net worth. The gap between rich and poor is deepening, and we need to create opportunities, not by giving tax breaks to the rich and hope that it will trickle down. We need to create opportunities for the people at the bottom and lift them up, and we will need to close the wealth gap. I'll bring prosperity to our district.
So much is on the line. So much is on the line. We have to preserve our legacy. We're America's last blackest city. This is it. It all comes down to Detroit. We don't have one elected official in the city of Detroit that will be black if we go with this guy who's done nothing for us. Legislatively. Everything that he talked about, he'd be so passionate about it, why can't he tell us the House bill that he's written to already to begin to address this? Because he lacks skill set. In January, Michigan will have 13 representatives in Washington. 13 people in a body of 500 plus. You need people with a skill set to argue and address your issues to get stuff done. Yes, I am a Republican.
I'm asking you to be a Republican. I'm asking you to give me a chance, and I'll give you a choice. We've been on the menu for too long. And what happens in Detroit is, when the Democrats are not in power, which they will not be in the House of Representatives in January, we don't get nothing done. I am a son of Detroit. I came back home and I worked here. I didn't just move in the city 4 years ago to run for office and not do nothing. Yes, he's been in Washington. Yes, he reaches every vote, but he's not crafted and authored no legislation. So much is on the line, and we need to have someone who has the skill set to get our issues addressed so that we can uplift. Because like he said, he pulled himself up. He is a millionaire. And not one way that he became a millionaire are policies he's trying to pass so that you can become a millionaire. So the things that he's trying to pass was actually a hindrance of him becoming a millionaire. So let's vote for someone who has the skill set and the proven capability to get things done. Thank you.
All right, we want to give a round of applause for our two candidates.